You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. And welcome back indeed after the summer. I would say I hope and trust that you had a lovely, peaceful summer, but I know better if you listen to this program and are of anything like a similar temperament to me. Oh, it was a lively time. In fact, it was so chock full of drama and switches and unexpected revelations as to have us ready, all of us, to just sit around and gibber. And that was even before the assassination attempt against Trump. No, wait. 2 assassination attempts. News was continually breaking again. The floor was littered with shards of news like crockery. So much so that I am going to keep this opening program to myself, because there's much catch-up to do, and we can start with a guest next week. But for this week, we've got good guests coming too. Wow. Well, for this week, though, between what's happened and what's about to happen, we have our hands quite full, which means we need to go inside the headlines. Well, it wasn't quite what you would call a peaceful summer. The last 3 to 4 months were volcanic, in fact. It's almost hard to believe that it seems like yesterday that Joe Biden was still running for the second term of his presidency. I, as one of many, was flailing in a mixture of keen guilt, but also acute irritation at his running, when he had previously said he was going to be transitional president. I hazarded raising the name of Kamala Harris among friends, only to be scolded that nobody likes her, she can't handle it, she's not prepared, etc., etc., even including not her fault they didn't let her become prepared, ignoring all that work she'd done, nationally and internationally, but never mind. Gavin Newsom's name was raised. In fact, names were sprouting all over the place. People were getting more deeply depressed all the time. I was nearing psychosis. And that's from somebody who believes that Biden was a brilliant president. But that lethal debate he had with Trump and Biden's general state of health really worried me. And I could well imagine Vox Populi deciding that the alternative living hell of Donald Trump was actually preferable, when this was the furthest thing from the truth. It was toxic ageism, and it filled me with bitterness and fury. After all, Biden, despite a hostile Congress, had passed legislation crucial to climate, gun control, manufacturing, and infrastructure. Under Biden, we saw the most aggressive environmental programs in U.S. history. He cut our emissions to half by 2030 and to 0 by 2060. He kept his promise and appointed an African-American woman, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, to the Supreme Court. He kept his promise about the child tax credit, which reduced child poverty in this country to half. He kept his promise about health costs, which reduced the cost of insulin to $35 a month. He created 15 million new jobs and turned a COVID-devastated economy around, so that more people are now employed than at any time in our country's history. He took great care to address the special needs of our veterans. He built up our infrastructure, bridges and roads and highways. He passed the first meaningful gun reduction in 30 years. He passed debt relief. He kept us out of World War III while still supporting Ukraine, and he rebuilt our relationship with our allies and even expanded NATO. Border crossings were drastically reduced in his presidency. And through it all, Despite being a Roman Catholic, he defended a woman's right to choose to end an unwanted pregnancy after Trump's legacy, the Dobbs decision, came down from the court. Joe Biden was likely the most transformative president in our lifetime, right up there with FDR and LBJ. But people have short memories. All that now seemed impossible. Post his deadly debate with Trump, all the numbers and polls and pundits saw Biden tanking. Pressure came from every side to convince him to step down. And against all sides, he resisted. And then, the miracle happened. It was like chess, where sometimes everything will be locked on the board, and then you move a single pawn, and suddenly it all rearranges itself, opens up, and you can breathe again. In a decision certain to secure his place forever in history, Joseph Robinette Biden, second only to George Washington in doing this, wrestled down his personal ambition and instead put his country first, declining to run. What's more, he endorsed Kamala Harris for president. This was seismic. I returned to the air and online for an emergency report, as I'd promised I would. The atmosphere was electric, and amazingly enough, it still is. All over the nation, it's as if people were waking as if from a daze, this delighted new giddiness, blinking and sitting up as if from a spell cast by malevolent forces. Within 24 hours, Kamala had raised $100 million, and 50 million people had called in to volunteer. 24 hours, and she was on the phones in a call with 45,000 black women leaders, followed by another phone call with 25,000 black men. And then it was followed by organizing by jobs, lawyers for Kamala, doctors for Kamala, etc. And by location, Georgians for Kamala, Hawaiians for Kamala, etc. And by the generic, Latinas for Kamala, Asian American women for Kamala, white women for Kamala, even white dudes for Kamala. Voter registration was historically high. Strangers were smiling on the street. And she was ready. The campaign transition team was almost pitch perfect. Her first speeches were superb. Then there was the Democratic Convention, which was another almost perfect accomplishment. No errors, forced or unforced. A strong and useful vice presidential candidate choice. Her own dignity and her own sense of fun, and yes, joy. She brought back the joy. So here we are with the shortest ramp-up to a presidential election in history, but one with tight margins. And if you're wondering how can it possibly be so tight when you have such a great candidate on the one hand and Trump on the other? When you have the future of democracy itself, the fate of the planet, health and equality and freedom and reproductive choice and, well, everything on one side, and Donald Trump on the other? I guess the answer lies in a reply given me recently by a cynical old pal. Oh, he said, people really don't like Trump at all. He shrugged. Except for his nutty hardcore, they really can't stand him, and they'd love to be free of him. But he's better for my capital gains tax. So in case you missed it, the National Partnership for Women and Families released updated analyses a few weeks ago on the pay gaps women workers face. Maybe this will explain things. The wage gap widened for the first time in 20 years. Women are now paid just 75 cents for every dollar a man is paid. That's a gap of 25 cents compared to 22 cents just a year ago. The wage gap remains larger for all women of color. Latino women workers are paid 51 cents for every dollar paid to white, non-Hispanic men. Black women workers are paid 64 cents for every dollar paid to white, non-Hispanic men. Asian American women workers are paid 83 cents for every dollar paid to white, non-Hispanic men. White women workers are paid 73 cents for every dollar paid to white, non-Hispanic men. Overall, women are paid $14,170 less than men. Does that clarify things? We have to take a break here, but I will return in just a moment with some fighting words about the future. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Be still, my heart. Those also can be fighting words. She didn't need to say it, after all. There was a bit of contention about Vice President Kamala Harris not specifically mentioning, in fact, not repeatedly underlining, that she is a black woman, that she is a South Asian woman, that she is, oh my God, a woman. The first female human being ever to hold her current office as vice president, and, dare I hope, will be the first woman to hold the office of the President of the United States. We women of all colors have been waiting 104 years since we won the struggle for suffrage in 1920. And it's been 248 years since 1776, when this country was formally founded. I can certainly understand the contention. I felt it sting myself, a longing for articulated awareness, publicly proclaiming this triumph. Not just rubbing it into the guys. Oh, well, there's a bit of that. Yeah, you bet. But rather a victory lap, an acknowledgement of so much work, so many hopes, so many sleepless nights, so much anxiety and years and despair, and finally, such celebration. And that's just over the fact that we've barely even ever gotten this far before. Well, actually we did when Hillary Rodham Clinton became the first woman ever to be nominated for the presidency via a major party, and then actually did win that election, but for the ghost of the Electoral College rising and walking, clanking its chains. Still, attention and respect must be paid. The flip-flopping of headlines over the past 3 months has been breathtaking. It's been like entering a recently discovered new book by Lewis Carroll, Alice in Government. Back in 2020, Harris had told Biden and senior officials that she did not want to be defined by women's or racial issues, particularly in her first year, and that her top priorities in 2021 included improving voting rights and reducing migration at the southern border. She then struggled to make progress on both of those issues which contributed to office frustrations, according to current and former staffers. Add to this the cumulative weight of assuming that she will be primarily defined by women's and racial priorities when she's trying to be the president of everybody. That's a trap Hillary thrashed around in. Whenever Clinton wore white for suffrage, or referred to the highest, hardest glass ceiling, or mentioned reproductive rights, guys came down on her like a ton of bricks for being a shrill feminist. What else? Whenever she focused on national military might, however, why, then she was abandoning her cause and trying to act manly. It was a no-win situation, and I applaud her for having survived it at all. But now it's years later, and times have changed. They may have changed so much that we don't realize there's an assumption at large, strong though little acknowledged, like tectonic plates moving almost invisibly, and then, boom, underground. Of course she's African American, and of course she's Asian American. Look at her. Of course she's a woman, making her the highest-ranking female official in U.S. history. She doesn't need to say so. This turns around an old conundrum feminists are familiar with. When we win something, it may go unacknowledged and then vanish into the fabric of reality. But when we lose it, oh, wow. Consequently, only the failures feel real. These days, for example, who knows that when I got married, I had to use my husband's name by law. I had to change my driver's license and savings account and checking accounts and charge accounts, all to his name. Although I kept my so-called pen name, my writer's name, my real name, alive and well. Who knows that employment discrimination was legal back then? For that matter, who remembers that help wanted pages in newspapers and magazines divided jobs by sex? There were virtually no male secretaries or male nurses, or, at the nursery level, male teachers. Who remembers that the words sexual harassment, date rape, acquaintance rape, and marital rape didn't exist? They didn't exist because the concept of those crimes didn't exist yet. We've had to win it point by painful point, often in court after long and laborious cases. And when we do win one, what had been anathema a few days earlier becomes an accepted fact. Zip, nothing to say here, move on, move on. This makes us rather cranky as we trudge onward and forward, but in Kamala's case, it's not a trudge, it's a leap. The leap is a triple one, and that triple is so profound and deep as to whiz past small prevarications. Once we get her in office, then we can fiddle the details. And good God, is she a wonderful package. Not only a woman, but a woman of color. Not just a woman of color, but a combination entire movement. Nobody is calling a former prosecutor a feminine wimp. She's a stellar lawyer, and she's married to another stellar lawyer, Doug Elmhoff, and he's Jewish, and her nickname, rhyming with Kamala, is Mamala. She has a glorious sense of humor, and unlike Donald Trump, I, for one, am delighted by her generous laughter. She studied political science and economics at Howard University, a historically black college. While there, she pledged to the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, one of the Divine Nine sororities and fraternities founded by black students. She was also on the debate team and elected to the student council. After graduating from Howard in 1986, Harris earned a law degree in 1989 from the University of California College of Law, San Francisco, formerly known as Hastings College. After gaining a law degree, Harris worked as a deputy district attorney from 1990 to 1998 in Oakland, California, earning a reputation for toughness as she prosecuted cases of gang violence, drug trafficking, and sexual abuse. She rose through the ranks, becoming district attorney in 2004. That same year, she endured heavy blowback from both U.S. Californian Senators Feinstein and Boxer over a death penalty controversy. She had pledged never to seek the death penalty, and in a case of a cop killing in which the accused was later acquitted of first-degree murder, by the way, she stood by her principled position. But she was later accused of prevaricating on that issue, as well as on her positions about abolishing cash bail, fracking, and health care. Her values, she says, never changed. In 2010, she was narrowly elected Attorney General of California, becoming the first woman and the first Black American to hold the post. After taking office the following year, she demonstrated political independence, rejecting, for example, pressure from the administration of President Barack Obama for her to settle a nationwide lawsuit against mortgage lenders for unfair practices. Instead, she pressed California's case, and in 2012 won a judgment 5 times higher than that originally offered. Her refusal to defend Proposition 8 in 2008, which banned same-sex marriage in the state, helped lead to its being overturned in 2013. Her book, Smart on Crime, came out in 2009, co-written with Joan O.C. Hamilton, was considered a model for dealing with the problem of criminal recidivism. As California Attorney General, she oversaw a staff of over 5,000 lawyers, investigators, and other employees, and she did so with crisp efficiency that was applauded by everyone except a few sexist males who didn't want to believe women were capable of either crispness or efficiency. She continued to maintain a high profile, notably becoming a leading advocate for social justice reform following the May 2020 death of George Floyd, the African-American murdered while in police custody. Her efforts silenced some who had criticized her tenure as Attorney General, alleging that she had failed to investigate charges of police misconduct, including questionable shootings. She ran for and won Barbara Boxer's seat in the Senate when Boxer retired, and she swiftly made known her own style. For instance, in reducing former Attorney General Jeff Sessions almost to tears in questioning in this following exchange with candidate for the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, about abortion. Harris: can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body? Kavanaugh: I am not thinking of any right now. As Biden's vice president, Harris was tasked with addressing the root causes of increased migration from Latin America to the U.S. southern border, promoting national legislation to protect voting rights, and preserving women's access to abortion, which was significantly limited in many states following the 2022 Supreme Court ruling in Dobbs. As president of the Senate, Harris cast the most tie-breaking votes in history, shattering a nearly 200-year-old record. She has a blended family, with grown stepchildren from Elmhoff's first marriage, is a superb cook, and delivers her debate ripostes with killer accuracy, sincerity, and wit. She projects caring and compassion with such verisimilitude that you simply cannot not believe her. She knows how and where and when to swear, how and when and where to dance on TikTok, how and when and where to slap away the Trumpian insults like so many gnats. She is, incredibly, a living incarnation of what this country could be. Her whole family is. Her also brilliant attorney sister, Maya, has had her own impressive highly impressive career, and together they make a feminist dynamic duo. What a mother these girls must have had. A last item on the personal front. Kamala means lotus blossom. Also, she is such good friends with her husband's first wife, film producer Kirsten Mackin, that Kirsten was in Kamala's family booth at the Democratic Convention, laughing, crying, and applauding. That, my friends, is truly convincing sisterhood. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.